Welcome back to 9am. Recently, Sydney-siders have been waking to the news of unnoticed deaths of the elderly with tragic regularity. 7 dying in a 4-week period, some lying dead undiscovered for months.
Yeah, it's a sad indictment on our society, and someone who has a plan to do something about it is Andrew Heslop, the founder of Get to Know Your Neighbour Day. Thanks for coming in, Andrew.
Good morning, Ed. You're clearly a very community-minded guy, but are you a rare and dying breed?
I'd hope not. But I think the statistics show that most people our age too busy with family, work and other commitments to be volunteers, to get out and do stuff. As families, you know, we've got other demands on our time. We've got to take the kids to sport. You've got to fit so many other things in that traditional sense of volunteerism that our parents and our grandparents had just doesn't exist anymore, and not-for-profit agencies particularly are having to reinvent how they engage with communities, because particularly women at home aren't at home anymore, and that's the heritage of volunteering in Australia.
Yeah, see, I mean, we've got fantastic neighbours in Sydney who looked after the kids when I was in hospital having Ziggy, and, you know, like the wonderful relationships that you can have with your neighbours, just, if you open yourself up to it, are incredible. You know, really supportive. I think of them as family.
And I've always had really good relationships with my neighbours, and that's where this idea came from 3 years ago. There was a tragic situation in Melbourne where a woman had been found dead in her home 2 years after she'd passed away. The bills had arrived. The utilities companies still continued to bill her but didn't cut off her services. The junk mail continued to pile up, and it wasn't until her neighbours decided that there must be something wrong that they finally called the police, and of course the police broke in and discovered that she had died.
And of course then there are all of those incidents in Sydney recently where even doors were ajar and people just walked straight on past it and it didn't go in there.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Is part of it that people are too scared to get involved in case there's an issue of domestic violence or something they don't want to get involved in?
I think part of it is something Dr. John alluded to earlier, where he said, you know, we're a more sedentary society. We don't walk around our suburbs. We don't take the kids for a walk, and we don't walk to the shops. We get in the car and drive to the supermarket or the milk bar. So you're not really engaging with the people around you. Increasingly, we're developing communities where we've got big walls, we lock ourselves into compounds, we drive in, drive out, we never talk to anyone, and that's part of the problem.
And that's the thing too. I think it's part of our generation.
Yes.
Was that we were almost brought up to kind of be aware or be wary of strangers and neighbours and things like that.
And there's a very fine line. Something I found just this week, that in December last year, NRMA Insurance released a survey that said people in the city were 3 times less likely to engage with their neighbours than people who lived in the country. 17% of people living in the city had no knowledge of their neighbours whatsoever, compared to 27% of people living in the country. And I think that's just remarkable.
So the Bushies are doing something right out there, and we need to take their lead, don't we?
That's right. I live part-time in the country, and it is. You do know the people walking down the street. You go into the newsagent, you know the people on the next farm. But in the city, we're too busy locking ourselves away and being scared of what?
Is part of that the trend towards huge, big shopping developments rather than just little strip shops like there once were? Yeah,
and that's one of the things that I've lived in 3 states. One of the things I love about living in Melbourne is we've got these vibrant strip shopping centres just out here in Chapel Street. It's fantastic. But, you know, in Brisbane and Adelaide, that's less so. And so you do have to drive to a mall to be able to, you know, do your shopping. And I think that's also quite sad. And then, of course, we're reliant on the car and then not talking to people.
So Get to Know Your Neighbour Day is this Sunday, the 26th of March.
It is this Sunday. It's held on the last Sunday in March every year.
And so what are you suggesting people do? They go and knock on doors and...
Absolutely. To break down that barrier of discovering who the people who live across the road are or next door, to be able to engage with the community, to bring back perhaps some of these community values that our parents had, and to get to know the people around us. You know, we live in a society where it's full of bad news, we're full of death and destruction on the television each night, and this is an opportunity to go and make friends, particularly with the elderly, people you know in your street who live alone.
I think there's a responsibility. There is a real responsibility.
But there is also a responsibility. Don't do it too early. Don't go around there. Don't get all eager about this and go around at 7 a.m. or anything like that.
OK, well, we'll be at your house at 11. Does that suit? You can cook breakfast.
He's good on the barb. He's got his George Foreman grill now. He's sorted.
How do you? I'm fascinated. Now you're the coordinator. You thunk this up.
I did.
How do you make a business out of that?
Well, I haven't made a business out of it, and that's one of the things. It's really an anti-campaign. My background's in the not-for-profit sector, and this doesn't require you to make a donation, wear a hat, wear a ribbon, buy a badge, do anything apart from
wave over your fence.
Absolutely,
that's all you have to do.
and create that sense of community. And I think part of it is that the media and politicians. I've had a federal politician, Senator Santos Santoro, who's been on the phone. His office saying this is a fantastic idea. How can we get behind it?
Yeah.
And that's really good. There's a group I know on the Sunshine Coast who read the media about it last week, who are wanting to set up a little support group. And in Melbourne, there are people who have contacted me to say, we're going to do that exactly on Sunday. We're going to have a family picnic and invite the neighbours.
Great.
Brilliant. All right.
It's called Get to Know Your Neighbour Day. It's happening this Sunday.
Yeah.
Go and knock on their door. Be nice. Be nice.
Might even be worth organising a street party. There you go. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank
you, Andrew.
Now on 9am, here's our neighbourly little earner, the shopping cart.